In this video of the Better Photography Weekly Challenge, we will be discussing the winners and honorable mentions of On the Other Side of the Mirror contest. Our judge and mentor is Zahra Amiruddin. Zahra Amiruddin is an independent writer, photographer, and educator based in Bombay. After studying photography, art history, and theatre at the Egan Center of the Fine Arts in Paros, Greece, she worked and contributed to various publications such as the Condé Nast Traveller India, the National Geographic's Traveller India, Time Out India, The Hindu, First Post, Elle, Scroll, and Soup, amongst others. Apart from teaching photography workshops at colleges and cultural festivals, her main areas of interest include art, history, astronomy, personal narratives, and family histories. Her greatest thrill has been assisting Brandon Stanton of Humans of New York during his trip to India and working with a team of scientists at the Lonar crater in Maharashtra. Hi, Zara.
Hi, Nilofer. Thank you so much for bringing me on. And it was such a pleasure to go through all of the entries that came in. So should I just dive into it?
Sure.
Well, we're going to start off with looking at all of the honorable mentions and then discussing the winners at the end. So to start off with the camera category, we had a bunch of entries. I'd say we had a large number of entries more from the camera category than the phone category. And so it was pretty hard to choose in that sense because there were a lot that, cut very fine in the amount of people who were incredible. So I wanted to start off with this image by Durbar Mandal from Kolkata. It's such a lovely image, especially because it touches upon this ethereal fantasy plus reality all in one frame, especially because it's such a unique sight to, just see like a policeman on the horse while, people are praying namaz. So it's just a beautiful scene altogether, and it almost seems like a decisive moments meet reflections. Well, this is again by Durbar, and this is a beautiful image because it almost shows the various personalities of a single human being. The various sides of a single human being, I'd say, and in this sense, quite literally the various sides of a person. So I think it captures the reflection not only in the literal, but also in the figurative sense. This image by Buvanesh Subramani from Coimbatore, it is very intriguing because I almost wonder how the photographer made the image. It had to be impeccable lighting at that point of time, and he had to be in the perfect position. The light that was falling on the hand had to be absolutely precise for this image to even showcase the way that it does. It could be, it has so many stories to tell because at the end of the day, we don't know whose image and whose hand it is, and it could be even the photographer's own hand. So it just has a lot of mystery attached with it, and hence I think it most definitely deserves to be in this category. This image by Yogesh Rana, it's so lovely because we often play with reflections of car windows and of taxis or of anything that we're in, any vehicles that we're in. So I think what makes this image really beautiful is the expression on the child's face. It almost seems like he was daydreaming while bored, stuck in traffic somewhere. It kind of paints that picture of a daydream, almost as if he wanted to step out into the world outside. Hence, it's really lovely. This image by Chinmoy Biswas is also very beautiful because it captures, it very literally captures a frozen time. And the fact that he's flipped it over always makes it more interesting because it kind of adds a mysterious layer to an image. What I think, and this is a very slight change, what I think Chinmoy could have done is that on the lower right hand corner of the screen, you can see a tiny little strip, which kind of seems almost distracting. My eye goes on going there. So maybe if he had cropped it slightly to make the land a little more even, I think this would make this image elevate even further and make it look a little more precise in a way. Turns out that this image too is by Chinmoy, and landscapes, of course, play a very lovely role in photography and reflection, especially when you have water in front of you, because it kind of creates this environment of vastness. So it feels like you stepped into the frame, which is always great. When you feel like you're sitting somewhere in a city and then eventually you have a beautiful rural landscape in front of you, it kind of, well, it at least makes my day. I love this image by Buvanesh, especially because there are so many layers attached to it. He managed to get the reflections, he managed to get his surroundings, and he managed to get what was happening in the ground below him. So it's just a very intriguing image to have all of these little fish right by his feet. I think it's also a very strong composition. It seems like a very steady composition. It's a very arresting composition. So I think this is a great image. This image by Sannidh is again kind of merges this realm of fantasy meets reality. It could be, it almost reminds me of a cover that could have been a part of Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I like the fact that it is, he converted it to black and white because it brings out, had there been a lot of colors in this frame, it would have probably not been as mysterious. So I think the black and white adds to that, as well as this little grainy filter that's added on top of it. It gives this kind of feel of being film or shot on film. This image by Janak, I think, seems very dystopian. Hence, it almost seems like this environment that we're currently in, which is, we're looking into the future, which kind of looks dystopian, kind of ebbing away from a dystopian past. So I think it encapsulates that entire idea of our current life and our current living scenario. Image by Ranu Jain is very poetic. The light in the image is really beautiful. And I think this kind of filter that the reflection is causing, it feels like a very lucid dream. It feels like, especially with the painting or the photograph, I'm not sure what is at the back, which again is intriguing. I don't know if it's a painting or a photograph, and that is caused by the reflective surface that the glass is giving, especially with the slight little spots of green that the trees presumably outside are reflecting onto the image inside. So it's merging of two worlds, and hence it's very poetic. This image by Tejal is, again, adds a lot of layers to a single frame. The pop of colors, the way that the fish is just kind of swimming in the on the man's head, kind of like, he's swimming in thoughts. It's very introspective sort of image. I also like the bizarre little mushrooms or designs at the back that, kind of add this entire forest, almost lake, nature kind of feel, even though Tejal was probably in a city somewhere, and especially since this is not nature, this is using an urban environment and an urban setting. So the fact that she was able to bring the urban into, the nature into an urban setting, I think is really great. So that's pretty much it for the camera category. Now getting to the smartphone category. Yeah. So this image by Prithvijoy is, I think, as I'm looking at these images, I realize how much of aquatic life that people are using with reflections. And this is something that just struck me right now while looking at the presentation. I think people are being drawn towards this aquatic kind of energy because it's so far away from us and so far away from our reality. So it's nice that we're seeking it through various other elements. So this very lovely image. What I think could have been done differently is if Prithvijoy had not included the nose of the person in the image. I think had it only been the eye and slightly with the person kind of looking straight into the lens of the photographer, I think that would have elevated the image further. As of now, the nose is slightly distracting and slightly out of place. This image by Chinmay, then, very beautiful image. I think the only thing that I would do differently is maybe switch it to a vertical, only because it gives a more sense of what I'm looking at, especially because the eye as well as the eye in the smaller mirror as well as the eyes in the larger mirror are looking straight at you. So had it been a vertical image, it would almost seem like the subject in the image is looking at me. But it's a great experimentation and a great play with mirrors. And the light is also extremely interesting. This image by Janak is a very lovely image because it is such a reminder, or rather kind of almost, it's a reminder of a past and a future and a present all together in a single frame. Which is why I think it's very lovely. Maybe what Janak could have done is, if his muse, if he had kind of asked him to go slightly more behind or slightly more backward, you'd get more of his muse's form, which I think would have just kind of given that little hint of, something better in the image. But all in all, it's a lovely composition. The light is lovely. The light falling on his muse is very beautifully contrast with the wall at the back and the shadows in the foreground. This image by Sannidh is again just lovely because of the patterns that are in the foreground of the frame. Lots of layering. There's patterns at the back which match the patterns in the foreground. So the background and foreground almost seem like the muse is sandwiched in between the two of them. So it gives this, it's just a very layered image. What I would have probably, what I think Sannidh could have done is maybe included more of the right side, because at this point of time, it looks like a very condensed crop. So I think it would have been better if there would be more from the right hand side as well. This image by Sangeeb is very lovely. It's like a collective stream of consciousness. It's the colors are beautiful. It makes me feel like I'm outdoors, which is something that we all crave at this point of time. So I think that's one of the reasons I wear through this image. Also the patterns of the water as well as the patterns of the window frames all create this really lovely symmetry. I think the only thing I would have probably changed is if Sangeet could have lifted his camera slightly higher to avoid that little bit of roof that is on the lower half of the image. I think that would have been slightly better. And here's another image by Sannidh. It's extremely mysterious, which is what reflections tend to do. It grants us an access to a world that's away from our own. So I think this image encapsulates that very perfectly. What's also really interesting is that it's very hard to not get this silhouette of a person in the reflection and only get one fragment of the person. So I think Sannidh has done a great job with that, of not capturing the rest of the person but only capturing the hand. So congratulations, Tejal and Sannidh, and great job. You've managed to encapsulate the layering really well. You've managed to create a world in an unrealistic world in a realistic world. So great job. And I'm hoping moving forward, we'll have a lot more women photographers participating in such competitions. I think let's balance this visual scale a little bit. Thank you, Nilüfer.
Thank you so much, Zahra.